via Skype. And good morning to you, Mr. Rowland. Talk to me about the dire warning. I'm not sure if you heard the Eskom chairperson there, Jabu Mabuza, saying that if we sit and do nothing, we might speak of Eskom in historic terms. How dire a warning is that for the entire country? Because Eskom does provide electricity to the rest of South Africa.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, thanks for having me on today, firstly. But the message painted by the chairman certainly suggests a state-owned entity really at the end of its tether. And the first, and I would say the biggest warning flag that shows that if nothing is done urgently, we're going to find ourselves in a very difficult position, is that Eskom, in its earnings from its from its operating activities, is unable to cover its debt servicing costs. So what this means is, well, in a regular operating year, they're unable to cover the cost of their debt. So they need to borrow more, and once they borrow more, their debt service costs increase. So it's a vicious cycle, and unless the country finds a way to either receive more revenue from its operating activities or dramatically cut its cost base, this is going to continue. And ultimately, either we're going to need more government guarantees, which will put our credit rating at risk, or we're going to face a country without power in the near and not too distant future.
Are you any confident, Sam Rowland, about the abilities and capabilities of the current executive management at Eskom, that they can truly turn things around?
Well, I think under Jabu Mabuza and under the current management structure, there does seem to be a willingness and an urgency to firstly undo the sort of damage caused by the previous administration and the political situation that drove us to this position. But the problems still remain very structural, like many of the problems that our country is facing. They're structural in nature. Firstly, in a weak economy, electricity demand has reduced, and that's affecting Eskom's revenue base. The other thing, of course, is we've continued, on a long-term perspective, we've continued to connect much of our population to the grid. So the number of people accessing the grid and the reliance on the grid has increased, but you'll find, and you have to look at the municipal accounts to find this, is that municipalities are often in arrears from on their Eskom accounts. So we're connecting more people, but we're not having more people pay for electricity. So those that are paying are finding that, and you would have seen from what Eskom requested in its tariff structure, is that Eskom has had to increase their tariff structures into double digits, and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you ask, NERSA has reduced that to sort of 5% and single-digit increases. Now, when Eskom isn't getting its proposed tariffs for electricity tariffs, that means that its cost base, its revenue base, isn't going to increase with its cost base, and that is what's continuing to put it in its unsustainable and perilous financial situation.
Just as a final question to you, Sam, there has been much talk about breaking up the power utility into three parts, and also some talk that certain sections or portions of it could be privatized. Is that possibly the solution here?
I would say yes and no. I mean, from an efficiency point of view, this might be a better option, and privatizing it should have a goal of reducing its cost structure. So we saw that in the build-up to where we are today, we saw that above inflation wage increases were granted, even though it was initially announced that 0% wage increases were going to be paid out. But we desperately firstly need to reduce the cost base. And if privatizing portions of Eskom is the way to do that, and to reduce the labor costs to Eskom, well, I would say that is a positive step in the right direction. But ultimately, we need to find ways to firstly increase our generation, increase the amount of revenue that Eskom is bringing in. And as I said before, this is a very structural, long-term problem in its essence, is that our municipalities aren't paying their electricity bills, and you'll probably find this isn't just on the part of municipalities. So until we increase our base of paying customers, we're not going to easily achieve a solution here.
All right. Thank you very much for those insights.